Hi, in today's video, we're going to explore the answer to the question, how does mental health affect professional athletes? We're going to dive into the unique pressures they face and its impact on their performance as well as their relationships. So stay tuned for that. First part of this video, we're going to talk about the pressure to perform for professional athletes. It is their job to perform. Second, we're going to take a look at how that pressure to perform can impact the stress and how then stress impacts performance. Third, we're going to look at how that impacts their relationships, both structure in their team or with their coaches, as well as outside of that. Fourth, we're going to take a look at what happens when they leave the sport. Then lastly, we're going to see how this played out in a real life example. So professional athletes have obviously reached the pinnacle in whatever sport it is. And when they've reached the pinnacle there, they need to maintain that performance. Athletes' careers can be very short if they aren't performing. Other expectations begin to arise related to performance. Sometimes you've been performing rather well, and particularly some of the really major sports like soccer or basketball or football, hockey, baseball, the big four of the United States, soccer worldwide. If you've been doing well, you sign that big contract. You get all this more media attention thrown on you because you've signed a big contract and you've got all this media attention, you're becoming a big star. The pressure increases even more, and most athletes who get to this level have pride, right? They are driven to maintain that, and that pressure now that they're putting on themselves because they need to keep this up. They are more in the spotlight. They've just signed a big contract. Oftentimes, particularly in some of the big four sports in the United States, leads to some injury problems, more emotional challenges as they're trying so hard to live up to those expectations, and their performance actually tends to decline because when you are in the emotion of stress, you cannot perform as well. So all those pressures from performing can lead to mental health challenges, which begin to cycle and impact that performance that they're trying to maintain. Professional athletes are under tremendous pressure to perform. Their entire livelihoods and careers are based on how well they perform. When you've reached that level, part of that has come from your internal drive to be the best. You obviously have certain skill sets that have allowed you to get there. But now that you're there, from an internal standpoint, people who've gotten there, again, have that internal drive to get better and to be better. They want to now maintain that and sustain that. They don't want to go backwards. So there's this constant increase in levels of pressure to maintain a certain level of performance. As you become more noted and a bigger star, right, where your name's out there even more, that pressure to maintain that is even more in the limelight. If you're one of these kind of role player guys and you want to be get more playing time, you are competing with a guy in front of you, but also in most of these sports, there's somebody coming up behind you, right? So you're under this constant drive and pressure to maintain or get better. Because of these, essentially your whole livelihood and everything is driven by the numbers and driven by the performance. And because athletics is so performance-based, you always have data coming in on how well you are doing. And athletes might try to look at those numbers, but yet it's really kind of impossible not to, because it's also what you use to try to figure out how you can get better. And anytime you see those declining a little bit, or somebody who's pushing you, right, coming up behind, that's putting pressure on you to to get better, to do better with those numbers. And again, once you start feeling that pressure, now you're beginning to get into the emotions. And that's kind of the next aspect of this, right? The pressure, if you aren't handling the emotions of that, of the stress of trying to perform and trying to reach these goals and these number kind of plateaus that you're seeking and trying to maintain, those emotions begin to interfere with your ability to make good decisions, your ability to let the flow state happen, your ability to get in that flow state where things just happen. You begin to carry stress more in the body, which makes you more susceptible to injury, right? So as you are looking at those kind of numbers you need to maintain and keep going, and you're feeling the pressure, if you are not handling those emotions well, then that decreases your ability to perform, and you begin to get into this downward cycle. So an athlete, as they get stuck into those mental health kind of aspects, and that pressure is beginning to kind of wear on them a little bit. If they aren't handling those emotions that come with that well, their reaction to it tends to be negative, and that can have impact on how you are interacting with other people, from your teammates and coaches to your friends and their family members kind of outside of that circle. And that then begins to add more stress, because as those relationships, and relationships are vital to our happiness. It's one of the most important characteristics. The quality of our relationships is one of the most important aspects to how happy we are, right? So as you begin to get caught up in the emotion of the stress and all that, it begins to impact how you react to it. And that reaction is very often not healthy. It's either can be withdrawal or acting out. Those are two of the major ways of doing it. And that can then fray, either case, relationships, which adds more levels of stress. All right, so it's really, really important for athletes to begin to find healthy ways to take control of their emotions, manage their emotions while they are trying to maintain their performance in their sport. Professional athletes also then have the distinct challenge of post-athletic career. The longer you are competing in sports, and that's part of your life, and the higher you get, the more it becomes part of who you are, your very identity, right? The longer you stay competing in your sport, and if you're reaching the professional ranks, the longer you maintain that, the more you kind of identify yourself with being an athlete in that sport. So then when you are leaving that at a relatively young age, right, very typically in the 30s, maybe in the 40s, depending on the sport, if you're lucky into the 40s, relatively young age, you now have to fill that void. You're now dealing with some identity kind of issues because you so much tied yourself to you as that athlete that can be a real emotional challenge, as that level of competition, all the literally the biochemistry of competing now completely has changed because that's not there anymore. And that is a whole nother challenge level that can lead athletes into depression, anxiety, more so depression, as they are now, again, trying to re-identify themselves and make that transition from something that's been so much a part of who they are in their life, and the energy and the mind thinking that they put into it for years. So that is another unique challenge for athletes as they transition from one stage of their life to the next. A real life example of this would be Andrew Luck. He was a star quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. And football is a little bit different because not only do you have all that, the mindset aspects that we just talked about, but there's also the physical wear and tear on your body. And then, again, the mind-body connection is real. You can't separate them out, right? So as you're feeling that in your body, that impacts your mind and the emotions and all the other aspects. You're constantly trying to maintain your physical body as well. And those pressures to perform and what you're feeling there all began to wear on Andrew Luck. And as he was trying to constantly keep his body in shape and recover from those either no more serious injuries to the everyday football, right? Violent sport. So those everyday bumps and bruises and aches and pains, all of that added that level of stress, mental health concerns that wore him down. Burnout, right? That's one of the possibilities when you are dealing with being a professional athlete. So at the age of 29, where he still had a good 3 or 4 peak years left as a quarterback at least, he walked away from the game. Basically, he admitted that it was burnout that was the contributing factor. He just wasn't mentally able to get ready and get his body ready to compete at that level. I invite you to subscribe to the channel and check out all our other videos. In particular, you might be interested in the video, How Can Coaches Help Athletes' Mental Health? So check that video out today, and I'll see you in the next one.